Hello, lovely listeners. And I am just going to warn you before I even introduce her that when we speak fast. So if you are someone who normally listens to this podcast like on a higher speed, slow it down. Things are about to get crazy. Grab your pen, paper, notes. This is going to be one you're going to want to re-listen to. I'm joined by the wonderful Penny. Hi, Penny.
Hi, great to be here.
Great to be here. Penny is the founder of Home Life and You, and we met about a year ago.
Yeah.
Yes, through an online community. And Penny invited me to, I mean, even why don't you share your perspective and then I'll share mine and we'll just create this together, everything that we've done together since.
I'm going to really try not to speak too fast now after that introduction, and grab your pens and paper. No pressure, but I truly hope this is valuable. I was just saying to Vicky, no matter what, every conversation that I've had from the moment that we met has been incredibly valuable. But as soon as I met Vicky, I must just admit I was totally obsessed, and the idea of time hacking, which I'm sure we'll dive into my relationship with time shortly. But I was like, I need this, and I was like, my community need this. We all need this more than ever now than ever before. And I just knew I had to get Vicky involved, and this concept of the time revolution. And I have been somebody that's always struggled with time management and what to do, and always thought I just needed more of it. And I know I'm not unique, and I'm discovering more and more since being in the time hacking community that I really am not unique. And I just think that this is something that I need to talk about more, not only with my community, but with the world. So I'm super, super passionate about telling anyone who listen about time hacking.
Amazing. So yeah, to give a bit of background, Penny works in the event space. So she holds this conference that's just been rebranded to Home, Life and You. We just started speaking about the work involved with rebranding. And let's just say it's a good job you already have these time tools in your belt. Um, so why don't you tell people a little bit about you and your background, and let's go from there.
Sure. So, as Vicky mentioned, my career has been in events. So I've always been in events. I actually studied at a university, and dived into the world of exhibition management. So if you've ever been to a wedding fair or the baby show, or pet shows, even I've worked on, or anything in the kind of business to business space, even in shipping, pharmaceutical, and tech, but this whole idea of bringing people with a shared purpose together that are looking for inspiration or education or connection. And that's what I just adore. And there's this term, manufactured serendipity, where I love the word serendipity, or the things that are kind of meant to happen, but actually we've created a space for that to happen. And yeah, I just think that's magical. So
I just even need to
go
pause
on,
on that for a
go
minute.
on.
Manufactured serendipity, because I think we either think it's manufactured or it's serendipitous, if that's the right word. And I think and I think people use this a lot, even in like belief work or mindset work, to be like if I just sit on my sofa and I'm like, I believe that I can launch a podcast. It's like, no, no, no. How do you manufacture that scenario to make it inevitable? So I just love that for people
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah, and it's amazing because some people will be like, oh well, we just did £1 million deal and we just bumped into each other in the toilet queue. And it's like, but you wouldn't have been there if it hadn't have been for us spending a year to bring those people together to create those kind of moments. And even sometimes toilet positioning or whatever it might be doesn't necessarily happen by chance. And so I think really understanding how people connect. And as I say, so that's what I just find awesome about events. And as you may imagine from that type of work, you are working to a deadline. Like if my content is not ready, or I haven't sold all my stands, or I haven't got all my signage printed, the event is still happening when the event is happening. And so I have lived my life on these kind of cycles, and of always thinking after the next event's done, things will calm down. Safe to say they haven't, or my expectations of myself or the event or the growing business, there's always been pressure. Um, and life and work and everything else kind of moves on. But
Yeah,
whilst
even need to pause again.
yeah,
I'm
go on.
going to do this with Penny. We're mates, and also because there's some just really good points where it's like that sentence where we're like, oh, when it calms down, then I'll catch up. When it slows down, it's like, in case for anyone listening, in case you've not figured it out yet, it's not slowing down, it's speeding up, which is why you have to learn to slow things down today and to prioritize today and all of this stuff today, because you don't magically wake up 3 years from now with a clear calendar. You probably wake up with more demands, with more emails, with more inboxes, even with more responsibilities. Like, it's wild how we have so often been taught to, like it's going to magically clear up later. And we have no evidence of this in our lives or in the lives of people around us because we don't see this, but we just believe it so much. So I just had to pause on that.
And because I've literally been saying the same thing for 20 years.
20 years, there you go.
20 years. No matter whether I've been running one event or 20 in a year, I've been saying the same thing. And I had always just prioritized work. And I know that you've said this before, Vicky. I just thought I will be able to get further in my career more quickly if I do double the amount of hours. I'll be able to get twice as quickly.
Yeah, that's time hacking, folks.
Yeah. And I was just always like desperate for the next promotion or the next thing, or to feel better, and just thought that I just had to work harder or I was obsessed with getting my emails down to zero. And and at one point I was even having, I don't know, 200 folders because I needed to be able to access all of my emails efficiently. And then somebody once told me, why are you doing that? Because you can just use the search function. So actually even just changing it so that I archive them or put them into a quick click into actions, even things like that, I was like, brilliant. But then that didn't make me change my relationship with my emails. I still wanted them gone, or that meant that I could cope
also,
with 100.
Penny doesn't know this, but we are doing a training soon on Inbox Zero. It's going to be included for you as a time hacker, but it's going to be open to the public as well. So all this stuff, it becomes also the way to do things, the way we've created it is to create so many complex systems around it. It's like, I want to be better with my time. So let me write down a long list. Let me put that into my calendar. Let me color coordinate it. Let me do it in 20-minute increments with 5-minute breaks and say, oh no, I've not got enough time to lunch or to go to the bathroom. Well, that doesn't matter because I'll just put 17 things in here and whatever it might be. And it's 2 hours into Monday. You've not actually done anything except realize you can't get everything done this week that you want to do.
Yeah. And I used to do power hours for my emails, but then they could never get done within the hour. So then I'd go, oh, so then am I extending that time, or do I put in 2, or whatever that would look like? And just this obsession on, and I work with someone now who resents the kind of email ping from Outlook that she's got another email in, because it means she's even further behind than she just was. And I'm sure so many people can resonate with that. And so what happened was essentially my relationship with time and trying to climb the career ladder and do all of those things was just do more and more and more. In fact, my now husband even at one point nearly broke up with me because he said, I don't think you'll find the time to have children. Which I thought was quite powerful and not entirely inaccurate at that point. But I did. I now have 2 wonderful boys who are 4 and 5. And I went back to work with my first after 4 months, full time. At that point, working from home did not exist, especially in the events industry. And so I was there at the nursery at 7:30 in the morning, waiting to drop him off to run to my train to do my commute and get back just about in time for 6:30. And I'd never questioned that I was going to do anything different. But only 2 months later, we went into lockdown. And so I was then working and mumming and doing everything else all at the same time. And ironically, in the events industry, it was probably not the busiest I've ever bin, because in a very different way than before, because we couldn't run events. But I'd never eaten so many meals at home, had so much washing up to do. I was then weaning my child. My dining room where I'm sat now became an office for two dogs at the time, and a baby's playroom. And it was that point I just had this realization that I have all of this toolkit in my professional life for leadership, communication, and all of the rest of it, but I didn't have that toolkit for my personal life. And if I'm being honest, I'd never prioritized it before. Home was just where my things were, and that I would come and wash my clothes and then go back on site for 3 weeks at a time in events. And so home for me wasn't a sanctuary. And if anything, having a child had more pressure on the environment. But again, I still didn't know what to do with it. I just had all these things that I needed to put wherever. And then this rising pressure on social media of having the perfect house and the perfect life and raising the perfect child and be the perfect mother. And I was like, it can't be just me that's struggling with this. And so that really inspired me to launch what was known up until very recently as the Clean and Tidy Home Show, which is a space for people to connect, understand that all of us are struggling with fitting these things in, or even understanding what products and tools we should be using, the impact of the clutter in our homes, but also going deeper into, well, what is the emotion behind it? So in a similar way to how Time Hackers addresses, time isn't the issue, perhaps clutter isn't the issue, or having the time to deal with it isn't the issue. It's unlocking those other emotions and beliefs and everything that go beyond them that is really what's holding you back. And so this is where, when I met Vicky, I was just like, there's so much aligned in terms of how we look at these challenges in life in the Time Hackers approach, but also most of the barriers that people have to making their home environment or their life organization work better for them is they don't have the time to do it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I spoke last year. I think I did 3 stages, and it was just so fun. Firstly, for a few of my friends to be like, you're speaking at a Clean and Tidy Home Show, but you're not exactly, I'm not someone who is super into homes. And you and I spoke about it, and you made it very clear, like, it's not about having the perfect home. And then also speaking to your audience, answering questions, and really understanding like how it relates and the problem that it is. And time, I always say, it doesn't just impact one area of our life. A lot of people will enter our world because of work and career goals, but it will also impact, the ability to have email-free date nights, or to say yes to like climbing under the covers with your kids and building a fort, whatever it might be. And again, yes to your home. And what this doesn't mean, one of my favorite, when I first launched Time Hackers, one of my favorite results that someone first created was they stopped restacking the dishwasher after their family. They were like, it sounds like a little thing, but they were family of 4, and she was restacking the dishwasher after every meal. And it's like those minutes every day of doing something that's already been done that, yes, could be done better. And your show is not about, here's how to stack your dishwasher in the best way. And I just think it's very refreshing and much needed, interesting conversations that actually support the human behind the clutter instead of the clutter, the same way we support the human behind time instead of the time.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting, just reflecting on there, that our new chapter, we've been trying to avoid calling it a rebrand, because Clean and Tidy is still very much part of what we do. But moving forward, the brand is known as Home, Life and You. And actually, it is the ultimate time hack, because for us to explain, it's Clean and Tidy Home Show, but we cover all of these things that you might not necessarily anticipate from the name of our event. Now, actually, we're going out there with painting that bigger picture. And we're not just focused, it's ironic, the example you've just given, because we actually do some advice on how best to stack your dishwasher, but it's not about that. We do how best to clean your toilet and how to fold your knickers and all of those things that you can take if you want. But ultimately, we also caveat that with here's some of the perhaps theory or whatever behind it, and this is why. But ultimately, you do what you want and what you want to bring to your space and your life and your processes and daily activities. It's totally up to you. And it's just ironic, I think, really, linking that time hack to what we're now known as, because I think You can think about changing your diet as an example, but if you don't think about where you shop, how you shop, when when you shop, how you store those things, whether you've then learned how to cook those things, or even understand what you truly enjoy, and so on and so forth, then you're not going to make that difference in your life. And it's about how everything is so interconnected. And I think that's truly what we're doing now, is celebrating the interconnectivity between work, life, friendships, relationships, even how you wake up in the morning. And so I think so much of that is related around time and this pressure to be perfect and achieve everything. But we repeatedly share, there's no such thing as perfection. Life isn't a competition.
Wait, I want to just pause a little bit, because I feel like we've gone through your story, but obviously in that time you started working one-on-one with a time hacker coach. Yeah. Then you've joined Time Hackers, and now you are in the certification to become a time coach.
Yes.
So when everyone's listening about all these changes, we kind of want to give them a little bit about how you've made it happen, what's changed for you. Because it's really not fun to say like perfectionism doesn't exist, but that's not necessarily how we met. Yeah. So what is it that you've learned through time hacking, whether it's the one-to-one coaching, and then we'll speak about the certification afterwards. Like, what is it that's changed for you in how you show up day to day, and how you make decisions, and how you
So the example that I always give, because there's too many things to list that I have learnt, even just in the way that I share my challenges or speak about myself, has completely changed since discovering Time Hackers. But the example that I always give, even in the park with some other mum friends yesterday, I gave this example. When I was having my time coaching, the summer holidays were looming, and starting the sessions, what can I help you with today? Summer holidays, I need to decide how much time I'm going to spend with my kids and how much time I'm going to spend on my business. And I was asked the question, so if I gave you double the amount of time, would that solve all the issues? And I said, well, no, because I'm still going to have to decide how I'm splitting the time. So time isn't the issue. And that, for me, is the example that I give all the time. Time isn't the issue. And I think it's been such a good excuse for my entire life for not getting things done, or not prioritizing myself, or not being decisive, or time has just been such an excuse for me. And just to understand that actually that is not necessarily the issue was so powerful. And so to then really address things like my guilt around running my business and my kids, that was the powerful thing. Not about, right, well, if you allocate this amount of time to your kids and and it was just really addressing how I felt about it, and then how I was going to move forward in line with those feelings, and accepting those feelings and using them to channel the decision-making process, so on and so forth, was so powerful. So I think that's, for me, where it's just really locked in. If I'm ever kind of coming back to, I just need more time, or even saying to somebody, I just haven't had time, or I've been busy, that badge of honor of being busy has been something that, I have worn many a time. And to just not go down that route and address the real challenge, or the real, not even excuse, just justification, real scenario as to why I didn't get that thing done for somebody. Or
let's talk about this, because I think people don't even, and I don't mean this in any bad way, I was exactly the same. It's like talking about the weather, like, I don't have time. It's so widely accepted that we never pause to think about what's underneath it. So we're solving the wrong problem. We're giving ourselves less sleep. We're waking up earlier. We're working longer. We've got 72 tabs open because we think there's not enough time to do all the things, instead of getting underneath it to like, I cannot outrun or outwork guilt. In fact, the more I do, the more guilty I feel, because the more plates I'm spinning at once. So what I think is solving the problem is actually perpetuating it. And that's why, and that kind of thing, like you said, can happen for 20 years. We're talking about habits that we build, external mental habits, thinking habits, relational habits that we don't even know. Like, we're doing our best to solve, we're giving everything, and we're willing, like, I know you, Penny, you're like willing to give everything to everyone. You're willing to do it all. You're like so game. And it's like, even if you could give more, that's not going to solve what's actually going on here. And that's why I think we see more burnout and more exhaustion, and we lose really talented people to thinking like, you know, to Penny thinking like, I can't do this business, it's not for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I challenged you at one point, you know, how do I explain to an events industry that
Yeah.
time isn't the problem? And this is something I'm still kind of working on in terms of narrative. And I think I might have shared with you previously, a good friend of mine, I was talking through things, and she was saying about how you know, she's just going to have to work some weekends, and she's just got to get through this bit, and da, 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 da. And I was just talking about, you know, kind of just consider, you know, where you're at and whether time really is the problem. And she was like, no, it definitely is, it's time. I said, okay, and left her to just kind of ponder. Only 2 hours later, messaged me, yeah, I've decided time isn't the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's such a convenient one, and everyone will agree with you. And like, you know, your neighbor and your high school teacher are like, yeah, it's a time problem. So we don't do, unless you've got someone like Penny in your life, or when Penny met me, or someone listening to this podcast, like go and take that question to someone else. Go and ask them, like, if it's not time, what could it be? Could it be guilt? Could it be fear of letting someone down? Could it be worried about, you know, not being able to pay bills in 3 months? Whatever it is, like, what is the root cause underneath it? I just think it's so important, and it's so fun to even like hear about you having these conversations. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the events industry, because I actually just interviewed Johnny. So he's certified with us in our coaching, and is bringing our tools to the entire police force to help them with burnout in the UK, which is so amazingly cool. And I love that you came in and knew you wanted to bring this to the event space. And just for anyone listening, the certification, like some people come in, literally, I'm thinking about Sophie. She joined and she's like, I'm not even going to be a coach. Or Anna, she's like, I'm not going to be a coach. I just want to do the tools. I want to go deeper with the tools. And Anna literally signed her first coaching client before she'd even finished the certification. She's like, no, I'm going to do it. And Sophie emailed this week about it as well. But some people come in saying like, I see a time problem in an entire industry and I want to help it. And that was you. So let's talk a little bit about the time problem that you see in the industry.
So, as I mentioned before, I think there is this cyclical nature of events, and you are working to a deadline. There's also a challenge of all the stakeholders, I would argue, don't worry about what they're doing until it is like upon them. And either because they're doing lots of other things like within their marketing strategy or otherwise, but oh, actually, we've got an event we're showing up to in a couple of weeks now. I should really work out what I'm doing it and get that sorted. So you always tend to have this real kind of pressure in those final days, weeks, months of an event. And the volume of information tends to be incredibly high. You know, I've worked on events where I've been looking after thousands of exhibitors. So if you imagine 1,000 people are going to be emailing you a response to something, and you don't have a better tool to do that, it's just in your inbox and you're processing, then that is really intense. And there's also a lot of this element of we're a kind of people to people business and being able to respond to things. So whether there's typically a pressure to respond to every email within 24 hours, and you know, be really accessible for people, and that customer service element of what we do compounded by that time element that creates this intense pressure. I also think there has been a massive culture for years around this kind of work hard, play harder. Like, to give you some context, I rarely saw my friends in the first couple of years when I moved to London and started in an event organising business, to the point that on Friday nights we had a regular delivery of Prosecco from the local off licence because we'd all still be in the office on a Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, you know, again, a badge of honor. I think there was never any kind of welfare of people being on site. I used to do some events where you would start building the event at midnight and go through, or you'd be on site at 5 a.m. in the morning, and then you'd be still scrabbling around at 11 p.m. trying to get something sorted, and then be back in again at 5 a.m. So I think, as I say, culture, that kind of cyclical time pressure, deadline pressure, as well as typically volume, I think all tends to kind of compound. But I think there's also even around job roles. So you tend to find that within the sales teams, yes, they have their quotas, but they will tend to be calling people within working hours and kind of have respect for that. Whereas if you are in operations or marketing in particular, there's always more that you can do. And that's almost how traditionally been how you prove your worth.
Oh, wait, and that's a really important point. There's always more to do. I think that's definitely true, as you say, in certain roles in the event space. But I think that's the problem these days is, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you differentiated yourself. I do think this is true by being willing to do more. And I think that was before technology is what it is now, where there is literally always more to do. And doing more is almost like cheap instead of doing less better. And so I want to speak a little bit about what you've learned about doing less better through time hacking.
So even things like talking about volumes of email, if the information that you send out initially is better,
Yeah.
then you get less emails.
Yeah.
And you can only send a better email if you're truly understanding what you're trying to share. Or like, let me give you an example. So Vicky had us in our time coach qualification activity do like a 1 page on one of the videos. And your feedback was, can a 10-year-old read this and understand what you're talking about? And I think so often, and this goes in all facets of my business, my life, is that if I'm sharing something as I understand it without coming from a place of understanding how the other person understands it, how am I going to be able to convey the information so they truly understand it?
Yeah. So just to give a bit of context, when you are in our certification, we always give a project, and that is a paid project, and it's always been meant to like implement tools and provide additional learning for someone to build a coaching business, not just, practice the skill of coaching, which is what a lot of the program is about. And so what you guys are doing is you're basically creating a booklet of the tools breaking down. So someone who could never watch the videos, listen to the podcast, come to they can access it and they can get value just by reading about it. I think you're right. I think so often our brain goes to like, what are the key points here? Assuming the person will watch the video, assuming that they'll have the same intelligence level, assuming they'll even speak the same language, right? I'm thinking about the person where this isn't even their first language. And it's really solving for it for the person, not for ourselves. And I think, like you said, let's bring it back to an events business. We're just like, oh, I need to get this email out by this deadline. People need to know like what time they're coming and whatever it is. And then you send it and people are like, wait, but I can't come till 11. Is that okay? And you get 75 emails back from people asking about like different times in the day where they might be able to come or not come, versus thinking, I'm going to add a sentence saying, as long as you arrive 20 minutes before you're on stage, that's great. And when you arrive, this is exactly what you do. And it's that kind of thing where, as you say, it's like, how do I get into the brain? And it's not going to be by doing it all in the fastest time possible. Like the fastest time possible isn't rushed. The fastest time possible is thought out.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting. While you were talking, I was reflecting a bit on a recent event for events people that I went to, and the founder of that event said that it's amazing to see some of the busiest people that make the time to go to the event. And it's so easy. We have it all the time. I'm too busy to come to an event, or actually it takes out too much capacity, and so on and so forth. But I went to that event one day when I could have very easily said, no, I've got too much on. But I confirmed one of our kind of tenders for our main contractor. I got my first gig as a time coach speaking to someone, which was amazing, going to do a workshop.
Was that like 2 weeks into the certification?
Yeah. Literally just talking about it.
Yeah.
And had a number of other meetings, and came with some kind of clear actions and takeaways or support or otherwise. So the kind of value of that was incredible, but I could have easily said I'm too busy. And I think this is where that kind of relationship, or I'm too busy to do a good job, I think sometimes is also like likening it to the emails. Or too busy to be seen, or too busy to do all of these other things. And I think that making time for what truly matters and focusing on the results, as you would say, as opposed to just getting it done or managing my diary as effectively as I possibly can, you do really reap better benefits.
Right. It's like two people can go to the same event and one person's like, okay, I came to the event, I've done the thing that I was supposed to do today. And the other person is like, what's going to make this event successful? What would I like to walk out of here with? And they can, you know, it could be a new time gig and first gig as a time coach. It could be, you know, signing the tender or whatever that is. And you could do that by 12 and be like, great, now I can go. Like I've done my things that I wanted to do. Whereas the other person's done on paper the same things, but they've not achieved the same results. And I think it's as simple as, exactly as you said, changing your brain to think that way and prioritize outcomes over just doing something.
Yeah. And it's so powerful, even around things like rest. I think my opinion on rest has changed so much, and I'm still, one caveat that I would like to add in, none of this is comfortable, by the way, especially when you've been spending 20 years being the way you are and going, and because so much of it as well is so simple. And so there is an element, I have to stop myself from feeling resentment at my previous and even current self and future self, because I know that I'll, you know, make some of the same mistakes or go into the same rabbit holes again. But just to, you know, how amazing is it to have the tools that you can pull yourself out of that. And it's interesting, I've got a good friend of mine who I'll say to her, oh, just, you're incredible. You're always so on it. It doesn't seem like you have any kind of imposter syndrome, and you're at every single event and you're showing up and you're amazing and da 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 da. And she was like, I definitely have all the dips that everybody else has, but I've built the tools to pull myself out of them more quickly. So, and interestingly, she started sharing with me now more of some of the times when she's not feeling quite right or otherwise, which I think has not only been beneficial for her, but for me to also realize, okay, so you're not this kind of superhuman. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's very much a superwoman still, but that thing about being able to pull yourself out of that, or that whole thing of, again, I often use the examples of diets. You know, you have a bad day. That doesn't mean to say that you have to keep having bad days. Pull yourself out of it. And the more quickly you can do that, the better. I'm sure it was you, Vicky, that had that one example that I've used a few times now. You have 6 eggs and one drops on the floor. You don't stand there and throw all the others on the floor. You understand, why did you drop that egg? Look into it and understand why you don't do it again. You know, next time, don't drop any. That, you know, that kind of analogy, rather than throwing all your eggs on the floor.
Yeah, and I love analogies, I really do. And I also think it's so important what you said about it's not being comfortable, because I think we speak a lot about hard work, and hard work produces results. And I think what we've really made hard work mean is long work. Where like hard work is being willing to be in the office on a Friday so you get your Prosecco order from there. That's hard, but that's not hard. Hard is doing the uncomfortable work of taking that radical responsibility, like all things we teach inside Time Hackers, taking that radical responsibility, taking that ownership, understanding what we've done wrong in the past. And it's easy to then go and beat yourself up in the past, because then you still don't need to do anything in the present. You're so busy, like even going to the eggs example, I dropped the egg, what, that's so silly, instead of like maybe making the meringue for the first time, where you're like, this is probably going to go terribly wrong and be horrendous. So it's like really that willingness to do the uncomfortable work. That is what I think hard work is. It's like that willingness to, you know, literally go into a new path, into a new way, when it's like, no, I'm so used to checking my email every 5 minutes and having the ping have an immediate response, and that creates some comfort for me, versus like, no, it's creating constant anxiety, because you constantly have to solve something to feel calm, and so you have to feel anxious for a little bit about those emails and the pinging without immediately responding, before you create that new neural pathway where you're like, I can have unread messages and feel calm at the same time.
Yeah. And I think there's so many ways you can make yourself more accessible to people that aren't just by responding to your email within 2 seconds. And I think that's something.
Someone responds to your email in 2 seconds, they have to then respond to their email. It's like, it's not, I don't even know where we got the idea that that's what everyone always wants. I don't think people always want that.
Yeah.
Go on,
Yeah.
sorry.
And I think, you know, and we see it, for the event we're selling to brands that come to our show, and we've definitely seen the shift of people not picking up the phone as much anymore, or even, you know, we're calling the number and they're not in the office, and that can be really challenging. And so I think, you know, emails have a place, but, you know, my goodness, sometimes I'll sign up. By the way, Time Hackers emails are always incredibly useful, so always sign up to those, as well as our newsletter, I would argue, but I'm totally biased about that. But the amount of things that I sign up to, and I think, oh, and that's going to be really beneficial, but then there's all of these different things that I think, well, I'll get to, and I'll flag them for another day, and so on and so forth, and you know, just giving myself permission to actually unsubscribe from a load of emails, even though the intention was there initially. My awareness is now there. I can always come back and revisit, and to give myself permission to do all those things rather than seeing that as a failing. I signed up to this because I had every intention of reading this email every day or every week because it's going to better how I am as a person or at work, or and so on and so forth. Just giving myself permission to get rid of that. And I love what you share about going deeper. I think I'm somebody who loves conversation. I love information. I would argue that I have, you know, very much a growth mindset, and I'm never going to be satisfied because I'm always going to want to know more on another person's opinion and otherwise, and reflect on that. But in that kind of craving for information overload, I'm not going deeper into the things that I've already experienced. And so I love how you share about the ideas of watching videos back, or even whether it's this podcast, listening back, what resonated, or because somebody, I don't know, rung your doorbell and you missed a bit of that, you know, rather than think, oh my God, it's going to take me loads of time to revisit and go back again, or whatever, you know, giving yourself the permission to go deeper into those things and revisit and understand it. And I think you shared an amazing fact, was it 80% you forget within the first day or two of the information. So actually to revisit, that's how you're going to be able to make the change, as opposed to just going, right, well, typically for me, I've got a whole bookshelf up here of self-help books. I'm going to read that one. Once I've got that, I'm going to bring the next one in. And it's just too much.
Yes. Actually, so yeah, just for everyone listening, I think one of the things Time Hackers now, the program, has more than it had when I started it. I think there was just a welcome video, but now it's got the portal, the private podcast, weekly coaching, replays of 200 past weekly coaching calls. Like, there's a lot of content, and my brain every so often will be like, oh, let's do more training videos. But then I will read people's comments in the groups, or hear people being like, this video, you know, I watched this video, made 10 decisions in 5 minutes, or that this is life-changing, and I have to remind myself exactly what we said about that email and about writing for a 10-year-old. Like this is, I just need to teach people how to use this better and smarter. And the fact that people will come, and you've already, I'm sure, heard this in the group, where they're like, I rewatch the video and get something different from it every time. You have to, I think, as a business owner, think about the person's needs above your own. What is their needs? What is their experience? Not like, what do I want to do, or what do I think is fun? Like, if someone came into Time Hackers and there were 200 tools, I mean, it's just going to completely shut down their brain. Like, it's got everything that they need to succeed. We've seen it time and time again. All I need to do is manage my brain that says, let's do more. And I think that's part of our responsibility as business owners, as content creators. I think
just on that, Vicky, I think, I don't know sometimes if I'm craving more information and reading the next book because I just want that one sentence that is going to be able to change my life and lock everything into place, and think actually it's because I haven't found the right process for me, or the thing that sings to me. And I think coming to an acceptance that there isn't a one size fits all, and I talk about this a lot with Home Life and You. The reason that we have such a variety of speakers with different opinions, with different backgrounds, is because you take the bits that you want for yourself. And, you know, how boring would it be if I would every day woke up, I knew exactly what I was going to do, life didn't happen, and, you know, just career, because actually some of the life happening is beautiful and wonderful opportunities and exciting things. But I think, as I say, we can crave this, you know, almost, I might have thought at one point, Vicky's just going to tell me what to do.
No, you will have. I know that, because I know people come in, and we always try and teach outside of it. But I think people think, like, if I just come in and Vicky tells me to break my day in 45-minute increments with a 27-minute lunch, and at 3 o'clock every day to check my email for 22 minutes, then that's going to be the right thing. But here's what I always say. it's not just that we're not all the same and there's no one size fits all for humans. There's no one size fits all for Penny, because we are not the same every single day. Our body is influenced by how much we've slept, what we've eaten, what's going on for us emotionally. Are we dealing with some form of personal crisis? Is someone we love dealing with a personal crisis? Are we going on vacation tomorrow? Like, our life, our brain, our physiology is literally not the same every single day. So even if I created an AI that would create Penny's perfect calendar, it would literally be useless by 3 p.m. today, because things are already changing even for women hormonally. And that's why instead at Time Hackers, we focus on teaching you how to know yourself, know your brain, make decisions, evaluate decisions, embrace discomfort, failure, fear, all of these things, because you are your operating system and you have to know how to optimize your operating system. And I can teach you how to do that very well, but what I can never do is optimize your operating system. And anyone, for people listening, anyone that tells you that they can knows they can't. This is what bothers me, when someone will be like, just wake up at 5 a.m. and that's it. It's like, do you know how many people in our program are like, I used to be able to wake up at 5 a.m. and now I can't, and now I'm beating myself up because I can't wake up at 5 a.m. anymore. I'm like, there's a lot of things that you are not physiologically supposed to be able to do at this point in your life that you could do 20 years ago. And beating yourself up for it is taking away from your creativity, your productivity, your confidence, and your ability to master your operating system as is now, which might not be able to wake up at 5 a.m., but might be able to, think about things differently, think about others more intelligently than you could when you were 18, whatever it might be. And I just think it's such a shame that we're taught to seek, and you speak about diets, it's the same, we're taught to seek the, like, intermittent fast until 12 and then have 3 spoonfuls of protein shake with half a banana, and in a specialist NutriBullet, you've got to buy this exact one and then have 3/4 of it then, and then freeze half of it for tomorrow, and then have a steak with 17 sweet potatoes and never ever a normal potato. It's like, how do you know that person's body? You just don't. You're teaching them away from themselves, to not listen to themselves. So I find all of that incredibly frustrating, but it is.
You mentioned listening to yourself, and I think that's something that I have been too scared to do up until now. And I think that's probably one of the most uncomfortable things, because always trying to be like someone else, and I think inspiration is so important. We actually have a whole content hub dedicated to inspiration, but we're just building this kind of caveat at the moment, like a tagline, that these people are supposed to be, I heard someone use this phrase the other day, like showing you the path, or like unlocking a door for you as an idea. They're not showing you this is how it's done or how it should be done for you. And that's what inspiration should be. Not that I should have the pantry that looks like yours or whatever. Could this work for you? Or is there something that you want to take from this, even if it's actually, I don't like that, or that wouldn't work for me because. And I think trusting yourself and diving into that, I think, is really important. And I think some things you were just touching on really resonate with this battle I've had around consistency for such a long time. And we hear, just be consistent. I am not a consistent human either, because I'm a woman. So my hormone levels are going to be different any given day. But I do have 2 kids, but also because I love ideas and opportunities, and I do go to events and all these other things. So my week is never going to look the same, and to accept that that's okay. And actually, consistency for me can just be tuning into myself and understanding what is right for me at every given moment. That can be my kind of consistent approach, not that I have to be consistent with my output every week. And I think that's been a real challenge for me, based off of the things that I've had to kind of unlearn.
Yes. What else? So we're gonna wrap up soon, because I'm just looking at the time. What else do you think has changed in your life or in yourself through, like, time hacking and doing this work?
So a bit of a build on that, I would say, is going one of the time coaching calls that I had, I said, so what should I do about my time management tools? So do I rip them all up? Should I stop that and start something else, or whatever? Because ultimately I was in a process of using them. And just this idea of lean in, see what works. Don't just rip everything up and start again. None of us need to do that. None of us need to just rip up and start again. And so I think that belief of, I'm okay just as I am, but I can probably give myself some more mental space by just tuning in better and making some incremental changes. And actually, if I am failing to get something done within 45 minutes, then maybe that process is not working for me rather than just going, right now I'm going to stop it. Because there will be plenty of things that will be working. And I think celebrating the wins
Yeah.
alongside of that has been something that's really, really changed, you know, and it, I know you will always say, no matter what it is or how small it might seem, celebrate those wins.
Yeah. And what do you think in terms of like your ability to get the important things done and produce results? Like what's changed there?
Having more of an uncomfortable realization and conversation with myself about why I might be procrastinating or not making the decisions. So even deciding to move with our new brand name, Home Life and You, was a massive one. And when to do it, when's the right time? Like, you know, let alone, you know, should we do it or not? And how many people do I need to speak to first to make it happen? And so I think what was really powerful about doing that, and that was only just over a week ago, was that I knew and was comfortable with the fact that it wasn't going to be perfect. There will be somebody that we hadn't have emailed in time, or that we could have gone to change our Instagram handle and it was going to take a little while, so we'd have to make a new plan. And so I think getting more comfortable with those kind of scenarios and then having a more open mind in terms of how to navigate it rather than having this kind of predetermined way that this was all going to go and everything had to fit in that, otherwise we'd failed. And so I think that's probably been one of the most powerful things.
Did you think overall, what I'm looking to hear is like, are you getting things done faster? Are you getting things done better? Are you having space for yourself in your life beyond work? Like, what does it look like?
Yes, but I'm also not doing things.
Talk
And I
about
think that's what's really, so yes, getting things done faster or seeing more results. I definitely think there's a lot more work that I need to do. So I by no means have got it all cracked. There's definitely some more videos and
it. Still
podcasts I need to listen to. I will continue to be on a journey, and because there'll be something else that will have to come in, like, you know, even my youngest going into reception in September, there's going to be some other requirements on me at that point, and so I'm going to have to adjust again, and so on and so forth.
But even I want to pause on that because that's
Well,
also why I love the fact that Time Hackers is lifetime access. I always say this, it's like once you're in, it's going to go through the waves of change because like we touched on, life isn't predictable and doesn't stay predictable, even if you really want it to, because of exactly like you say, kids move on and their situation changes and so on.
and I think I have realized that I don't need to be cured,
Oh,
that there's always going to be more things that can be done, could be done, that I'm going to want to do. And I think that back to your point earlier about this kind of drive that I've got, it's not even that I resent doing the things. I want to do the things and I want to do more. And I think that's why it's so uncomfortable, because it's almost like, well, I don't mind putting all the extra hours in, but there's only so much that can be done. So I think that true acceptance of, yes, I'm getting things done, I'm getting the more important stuff done more quickly and more effectively, is what I would say. You know, am I getting more done? I could argue I probably am, but holistically across my life, and there's plenty of stuff I'm not getting done, but for good reason.
No, but that's what I mean. It's like, and maybe that was a mistake on my part, but it's like it's not about getting more done, it's about achieving more. And I think that can be done by doing less. And I think a lot of people use that, achieve more while doing less. But I just love how you're like, no, I'm actually doing less. And like you said, you've just gone through this whole rebrand, which is actually a more fitting brand and the brand that you want. Like you've created that space. To think by not juggling 101 things at once, even though like most of our listeners and like me, you're totally willing to. And if that worked, then you probably would do that. But this is actually the better way.
Yeah. But no, it's been amazing. So for anybody listening that isn't part of it yet, I would hands down recommend this. Honestly, it's changed even my conversations with mums in the park. And I talk about it all the time. And yeah, it has impacted every facet of my life, which is why I was so excited about it in the first place. But to truly understand for me, the difference it can make to my life and how subjective that is to me and what I want to achieve, I think has just been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And is there anything quickly, but I'll probably have you on again, to say about the certification, just because yeah, just anything to say for anyone thinking about certifying. This is the first year ever we're doing it twice in a year. So our next class is actually in September instead of January next year, which is really exciting. But is there anything you could say for anyone thinking about certifying, or what drove your decision to be like, I want to certify these tools?
So I think if you're thinking about doing it, do it. In summary. It's really interesting because I think starting the certification has been at a time where I've been really questioning so much about my life, my thoughts, my feelings. And it's just been such an amazing vehicle to unpicking that and understanding truly what I want. What I think what really drove me was just because I was totally obsessed by the idea that I could think differently and wanted to just absorb anything and everything that could help me do that and change my relationship with time. But I think what's been even more powerful since starting is Vicky, you kind of, when you got us on our first call, just said you are already experts in this. And I just think yes, of course, there's so many things that we're learning and theories or whatever it might be, processes that are incredibly useful. But I think it's really bringing people in and saying that you've got something to give to this, and it's not just here's your thing and go off and do it. And I think the magic is in that actually we're all contributing, finding our own way. And I think that's what's so beautiful, not just about the certification, but to say for anybody picking this up, that you are the expert in you. Lean into that, and it's about having that vehicle to understanding that. So yeah, I think is absolutely fantastic. I think I was certainly nervous because I'm somebody who hadn't joined. I'd had a few time coaching sessions before, but I wasn't kind of in the time hacker community properly before starting the certification, and so that was certainly something that concerned me, but has not held me back. And the community's been incredible. And yeah, Vicky's awesome, as if you've listened to this, either this session or before, you all know. But I just think it's so important, and it just so aligns with why I started my event and my business, is because we all need help with this. And life is only getting busier and more complicated, with more opinions and more options. And oh my goodness, wouldn't it be amazing if we just had a huge team of people helping others cut through that noise?
Yeah. So good. Thank you so much for your time, Penny. Everyone, I'm going to drop. Is the website, like, are you already selling tickets for the next event?
Yep, already selling tickets for the next event. So it's October 18th and 19th for XL London, homelifeandyou.com, or our handle on Instagram is homelifeandyou. Check us out. We'll be getting Vicky on a live, I'm sure, again.
I'm going to be there. I'll be speaking on stage again, so you can also come and see me. And I loved it so much last year. Just for anyone, I came to London with the family, and there was a kids section, and the first day I came by myself, and the kids section was so good that the next day I bought my little one, and he just had like the best entire day of his whole life. So I also, like, I wasn't expecting it to be so wonderful, the play area, but it really was.
I think we just want to reduce as many barriers as we possibly can to help people make life easier for them. And so whether that's anything from kids zones or accessibility conversations, or whether you're interested in having the perfect home or not, whatever you aspire to do, even if you've never picked up a cleaning brush in your life, it's not about that. It's about this kind of balance between everything that life brings, including your relationship with time, which is why I'm so excited to have Vicky back again.
I'm so excited to be back. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This has been a really long episode with lots of juicy information. It's definitely going to want to be... I'm speaking too fast for me to understand. It's definitely going to be one to re-listen to. And thank you, Penny. Thanks, everyone, for being here.
Thank you for having me.